Hi guys, welcome along. Kyle here from Footy-Boots.com, and you are joining us recording this video on the cusp of a brand new season. And one of the questions we get asked most pre-season is which boots are the right boots for me? And whilst that's something that we can't necessarily answer across all boots that have ever been made ever, we can give you an idea of which boots within a particular brand you'll get the most out of. And today we'll be taking a look at Adidas football boots. Now, Adidas have been, in footballing cliche terms, on a rich vein of form recently. Ever since the 2010 release of the F50 Adizero, they've been killing it in terms of releasing boots built upon the sprint frame, the platform that all the shoes in our range are built upon. Now, this chassis is super lightweight, thermoplastic that is designed to be flexible and responsive, and they've rolled it out across their entire range over the last 3 years. This also means that all their boots have a very similar shape and fit, as you can probably tell because they're built off the same chassis. There's a lot of things that they have in common. One of those is the inclusion of microcoach compatibility. If you have a speed cell or are interested in buying a speed cell, you can use this functionality to pop the chip in your left boot, and that will track performance metrics such as speed, data covered across your game, and then you can upload that wirelessly to your phone or computer. It also means that they've got a very similar fit, but don't worry, there are some variances. So even if you've got particularly wide or some sort of foot characteristic that perhaps maybe thinks excludes you from Adidas boots, there's probably maybe something that we can recommend that you at least try on to see if it helps augment your game. Onto the boots themselves, and where better to start than the brand new Nitrocharge 1.0. This is designed by Adidas for the engine player, the player who doesn't give up on lost causes, tracks back, makes tackles, that sort of thing. And they built it on a platform of energy retention. And that is something that is kind of very hard to quantify on an amateur level. But we think what they have created is probably one of the best all-around boots on the market at the moment. Starting with the upper, they've got this great hybrid touch synthetic leather that, in my opinion, is one of the best on the market. It's right up there with Nike's Kanga Light in terms of softness and sort of flexibility and that natural sort of give that you want when you're taking control of the ball. They've, as you can see, it's something that Adidas have formed into little pods for just a little bit more either protection or a little bit of cushioning. I'm not really sure, but if that sounds like your thing, then it's here on the Nitrocharge. And speaking of sort of soft, supple, that sort of thing, it's only augmented by this performance protective mesh that you can see here on the rear quarter. Now this is like running shoe material. It creases, folds, scrunches up like you could do with high-end performance running footwear. And this gives the shoe a real sort of sneaker-like fit. You know, you can pull that really close to your foot if needs be, if you like that sort of fit. It breaks in really easily, and even better, it's got a little bit of a protective edge, which we'll get onto later. The marquee feature, and probably the most distinguishing on the Nitrocharge, is here, the energy sling that runs across the boot. Now this is where Adidas claim that the boot saves energy. This idea that when you push off with the boot, this sort of locks, it moves with your foot so that you don't lose any energy by kind of leaving the boot behind when your foot leaves the floor. Imagine sort of when you lift your foot in a Wellington boot, you know, and the boot sort of doesn't quite move with your foot until your foot hits the upper, that sort of thing. That's what Adidas is saying here. Again, something that's very difficult to quantify. But what I prefer to think of it as is as a 3-point harness across the boot that really locks your foot in place. It really pulls the upper snug to your foot. So if you're the sort of player that gets the centre of gravity low when marking men, trying to keep up with quick-footed players, or you're the sort of player who is the quick-footed player who's trying to beat people and really likes their boot to feel one-to-one in movement with their foot, then the Nitrocharge offers that with the energy sling. The million-dollar question, I suppose, then, is what sort of players are going to get the most out of this boot? And as Adidas have found, from goalkeepers to central defensive midfielders to fullbacks wearing them, this brings a lot of benefits to players anywhere on the pitch. The Nitrocharge is a great all-around boot. But what I think sets it apart from the rest of the boots in the Adidas range is this focus on protection. You've got these little Achilles Protective pads in the back, you've got the performance mesh that's designed to disperse impact around the foot, and you've got this extra padding on the toes, another area where anyone who's played football for more than a couple of seasons knows you will catch a stud there from time to time. So if protection is something that you would value in your game, if you put your body on the line and you like to make tackles, put yourself in situations where you might get stood on, as bad as it sounds, then the Nitrocharge offers that. Again, something that's very difficult to quantify, but it is a benefit that the Nitrocharge offers. Next, the Adidas Predator Lethal Zones. Now this isn't the same Predator we grew up with, is it? Certainly looking at it, you know that it's no accelerator or mania. The Adidas Predator has evolved as the game has evolved. It's designed now for what Adidas would bill as the technical wizard, the player who likes to maximise and make the most out of what he can do with the ball in the short amount of time you get on it per game. So again, this is a very lightweight boot because of the sprint frame, uses the same hybrid touch as the Nitrocharge. But one of the things that I find that the Predator brings to the game that the other boots don't is this wicked sense of grip that this SL rubber gives you on all the elements. It's divided into 5 zones: dribble, first touch, sweet spot, pass and drive. And what it gives you is this real sense of purchase on the ball when you catch hold of it with drive, or this tactile feedback and grip that you get with first touch and dribble. They're not going to make the ball feel like it's velcroed to your foot, and rightly it shouldn't. But what it does give is a genuine sense of grip that really surprised me when I first tried them on. Again, also, as I mentioned, you've got the same hybrid touch upper here that is, again, super soft across the boot, except it's sort of interrupted by the zones, so you don't get that pure feel that you kind of get on the front of the Nitrocharge. And so, who do we recommend this boot for? Well, just again, like the Nitrocharge, you've got goalkeepers like Iker Casillas wearing the Predator at the moment. You've got midfielders like Oscar, Juan Mata wearing them. Defenders like Gary Cahill and forwards like Fernando Torres. Bit of a Chelsea theme there, I apologise. You know, so these are a very versatile boot. So again, it can't be defined really by what sort of position you play in. What I think instead is that, for example, why would you pick these over the Nitrocharge or the F50 or the adiPure? The reason is that these give you grip. If you're the sort of player who, when they strike the ball, they want to feel a bite on the ball when they catch it, and they don't want it to be too weighty either, then the Predator LZ is absolutely a boot you should consider. And now we're going to take a look at the lightest boots in the range, the F50 Adizero. It really can't be understated how popular these boots have been for Adidas. There's been a huge uptake in them on the F50 range in general since their launch in 2010. They're 165 grams in the synthetic version like we have here, and about 180 in the leather, a little bit more than is stated. Now, these boots bring a really almost non-existent feel to your foot on the ball. They are spectacularly low weight. You might think that, oh, 165 grams, you know, is it really that big a drop from something that's 250 or what have you? But holding them in your hands and especially putting them on your feet, you really do appreciate that these give almost a nothing feel on your foot. Some people like it, some people won't. Now, what I think is a key factor here for the F50 is the sprint skin upper. We've mentioned the uppers on the previous two. This is completely different. This doesn't even intend to try and be a leather. It's basically a super thin dual max synthetic that gives a barefoot feel to the ball. And the best thing is that I find it doesn't give too much of an aggressive crease. Anyone that ever wore the Superflies will know what I'm talking about. This, when the boot creases, it folds into your foot and it's not comfortable at all. Whereas I found the F50s, they set a new precedent for what we should expect from comfort from a speed boot. They are an absolutely exceptional little cleat. In terms of the other features that the F50 brings to the table, the other big focus besides speed is stability, this idea of control when you're moving fast. And for that, Adidas have really two pieces of technology that help make that possible. Inside, you've got internal TPU support bands. The idea here is that because the upper is so thin, these reinforce these key areas of the foot, where when you're pushing against the upper, a little bit like the NG Sling on the Nitrocharge, they help keep the boot one-to-one with your foot as you move it. Additionally, around the edge, you've got what Adidas call the sprint web, this sort of translucent finish on the boot is another thing that again supports the boot from the outside and also gives it a little bit of abrasion protection on the toes. So what sort of player would wear a boot like this? Well, Adidas say it's for the speed demon, and it is hard to disagree. This is a cleat that is very focused on offering a barefoot feel. These other boots, the Nitrocharge, the LZ and the adiPure, are designed to kind of give you a little bit of extra something else on your foot, whether it's a bit of grip or whether it's that sense of snug, secure fit. The F50 is different in the sense that it tries to basically offer a barefoot feel. The super thin synthetic, complemented by the lightweight construction, offer this sense of almost playing barefoot, whilst offering a great level of traction through the sprint frame. So if you're the sort of player that absolutely plays at breakneck pace, these go incredibly highly recommended. As a lot of people in the sort of anyone that sort of deals with football boots will tell you, the F50 is simply one of the progenitors of this modern age of super lightweight boots, and is still one of the very best at it. Finishing things up, we have the Adidas adiPure 11 Pro. Now this is the heaviest boot in front of me, but it is also the only one to offer a natural leather upper. Adidas, in the forefoot at least, have a calf leather upper. This is Taurus leather. It's super soft, super supple. It breaks in really nicely, as you can see on our well-loved pair, and it really does, you know, sort of crease and bend as you'd want a natural leather to do. Moving on to the midfoot, and Adidas have employed a synthetic, which is kind of unusual for the adiPure, but not too dissimilar to what they did on the adiPure 2. And it is what they've done here is create what they call the 360-degree support saddle. This basically runs underneath the sole of the boot, works with the lacing system to pull that middle of the foot extra tight, and what that does is it reduces heel slippage, and it just generally improves comfort and that secure one-to-one fit like we were talking about with the F50 and the Nitrocharge, just in a slightly different way. Now, one of the other things that the adiPure offers that the other boots don't is conical studs. Now, this might sound like something really finicky to pick on for a few people, but the rest of the boots in the range offer a triangular Traction 2.0 plate, and whilst this is the same plate, the same speed frame, these are rounded studs. Now, anyone that's, a lot of players that I speak to who've had knee injuries in particular will absolutely play nothing else than a conical stud. They need that rotation in the ground. You know, if there's any chance that there's damage on the knees, they simply don't want to get caught when they turn. So that's another thing that the adiPure offers, along with the natural leather, that these other boots don't. So, what sort of player would get the most out of the adiPure 11 Pro? Well, it's kind of an anomaly in the sense that it's the only boot that offers a natural leather forefoot, with the exception of the Golio leather F50, and conical studs. So if they're factors that you have to have from a boot, aside from the Copa Mundial, this is the closest thing you'll find with the 3 stripes on them. Another thing that the adiPure has over the others is that it has a very retro-inspired, sort of traditional, not too flashy sort of aesthetic about it. So if you're not up for something as sort of bright and daring as the F50, then the adiPure is going to give you a more subtle look on the pitch, if that's the sort of thing you go for. Finally, we get a lot of questions when doing boot reviews about the fit of each boot. We know a lot of people have wide or slightly unusual, probably a harsh word to use, shaped feet, and they want to know what boot will give them the best fit. And because of the sprint frame, there's a very similar sort of theme, especially in the heel, for all the Adidas boots on that I have in front of me. Now, if I were to sort of grade them, then I'd say that the adiPure offers the kindest fit to wide-footed players. The natural leather will stretch a little bit more, and the lacing is a bit more central, so you can slacken it up. It runs a little bit deeper as well, closer to the toe. So if you can loosen it up a little bit more, wide-footed players will get the most out of that. Next, I'd go for the Predator LZ. This hybrid touch synthetic does actually have a bit of give to it, and the Predator sort of maximises that in the sense that it's got quite, again, a deep lacing system that isn't quite central, but it's very linear, so you can loosen it for a consistent fit across the boot. However, a word of warning is that it is a very supportive boot thanks to the memory foam on the instep. That also gives it quite a high arch feel, so if that's a problem for you, if you've got problems with your arch supports or something like that, I'd really recommend getting a pair from the to try on at the shop and taking your own arches along. Next up, I'd go for the Nitrocharge. It's the same hybrid touch synthetic as the Predator, and it will stretch a little bit more actually because of the stitching and the padding on the front there, but in the toes. However, once you get to the energy sling, this is a very high tensile rubber that will stretch, but you'll be fighting against it whilst you're breaking it in. And I got some pretty nasty cramps from it, and that's nothing against the boot, it was just the shape of my feet, so I can't really downgrade it. But if you've got wide feet, particularly in these areas, that's something to look out for. And finally, I'm going to finish up with the F50, not because it's the worst for wide feet, but because this is a synthetic that doesn't even try to be leather. It will not stretch as much as you want it to. So that's probably the kind of least friendly in terms of when you try it on. If it doesn't fit, these aren't going to make your life any easier. So thanks for bearing with us whilst we've looked across the Adidas range to see which fits which type of player. Now, we do our best to answer every comment that comes in on the YouTube page, so if I've missed something that you want to hear more on, or perhaps you'd like to request a video on something else or another brand, or anything that we can do to make the most of what we know from the site to help you guys make the right decision when picking your football boots, then please do leave a comment. You can either hit us up in the comment section, or you can go to our Facebook, Twitter pages. You can check out the full written reviews of each of the boots, which I'll leave in the description, or alternatively you can leave us a quick note, a post, or even join us in a hangout on our Google Plus page. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.